In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right, it's another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix, an attorney's exodus from bondage. How's everybody doing out there today, wherever you are? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm doing great. This is Bryce D. Nyer, your humble host here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty, but I'm never going to call it that. It's always Fort Bragg to me. So, what are we going to talk about today? Okay. So what we're going to talk about is, making excuses. And I do it all the time. It's a bad habit. It's an obstacle. We all make excuses of why we don't do certain things. It's horrible. And it's a bad habit, and it's a bad habit that needs to be broken. And I discovered this again yesterday when I was having a conversation with one of the greatest podcast producers in this nation, Bryce Prescott. Yes, he's great. He's fantastic. And he has been instrumental in me building Legal Warrior and Escape the Legal Matrix. He and his production team, he's the go-to guy, the one to hire. So I want to talk about this conversation I had with Bryce Prescott and how it affects you young law students and lawyers, because you're going to have problem, and you do have problem when you make excuses of why you do something or why you don't do something, why you don't make bold decisions. And remember, the purpose of escaping the legal matrix is not to be a prisoner and a slave to the Orwellian powers in the legal profession. And your impossible game in Escape the Legal Matrix, and consequently Legal Warrior, is to what? It is to open, to own, to operate, and to lead your own law firm. That's right. So for me, I've been practicing law for decades, okay? And what I can tell you is when I first started working for other people, it was great. I mean, who doesn't want to have a job? Who doesn't want to make money? And of course, you're coming out of law school and you're not a trust fund, baby. You've got law school loans and you're going to have bills to pay. And of course, everybody's more concerned about that. But this is why I want to talk to you about escaping the legal matrix and about Legal Warrior and changing that phraseology, changing that frame of mind, changing that complete mindset, because you have to stop this fear and procrastination. That was one of my biggest weaknesses and my biggest pits in my entire life, is I would get myself all wrapped up in this fear and I would procrastinate. I'd have one foot in, one foot out. And I would delay making these bold decisions. And most of the time in my life, when I made a bold decision, it was out of some major traumatic event that happened that propelled me to move the needle to cross the line into go. Okay, so years ago, when I was an associate for another firm, great firm, prominent firm, great lawyer, great entrepreneur. Just walk the talk. I mean, I'm talking like Fortune 500 lawyer, Fortune 500 entrepreneur. But there came a time when I was just miserable. I was just absolutely unhappy and miserable. And I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming anybody. I blame me. And so I got to thinking, I'm like, I just don't feel from the facts that I'm going to progress and be everything I can be if I continue to be somebody else's associate. And, I didn't know what the partnership track was going to be. I don't know if I was ever going to be made a partner. And if I was going to be made a partner, I don't know what my share would have been. Would I have been a junior partner? Probably. Clearly not a senior partner. I was young. I was still brand new. But after a while, and things went by, time went by, I became more and more dissatisfied. I was just, oh man, I can still sense it like it was yesterday. There was just that pit in my stomach and awakening at 2 a.m. and staring at the ceiling. And there were certain mindsets that I began to get. I began to develop, and they developed as a result of this process I was going through, this process and the pain in this process of wanting to be free, of wanting to open, to own, to operate, and to lead my own law firm to be what? To be free. Because remember, that's your impossible game, to be free. You want to be the commander of your own law firm. And I sat there, and in my discussions with Bryce Prescott, as we build out Legal Warrior, what would I tell myself if I could transport myself back in time, way back in time, okay, years ago, when, what would I sit down, look myself in the eye across the table, and what would be certain things that I would tell myself that you have to stop doing or start doing? These are not just the better questions, they are the best questions, okay, the best questions. And so I sat down and I was going through this list, and I listed out all these things, and I talked to him with Bryce Prescott, and I came to this thing, I'm like, well, there are too many on the list, should I take some out? Do they overlap? And I just kept looking at them, and I was like, no, I can't, I don't want to take any out, because these were the key things that propelled me to move the needle, to do what? To shift, to transform, to have this exodus from a nation of where I'd been a slave to the Pharaoh, to part the Red Sea where I could walk across the sand to what? The new nation. And what's the new nation? The new nation is your new law firm. You're owning it. You're operating it. You're leading it. You're building it. And you have people that you're bringing into this nation. That's what you're doing. You're building a new nation. You're leaving the old nation. The old you's got to die. There's got to be a new you. And so I kept thinking back then, I'm like, man, there's this pain that was inside me, this process I was going through. And the first thing I had to do was I had to stop being afraid of going out on my own. I just had to stop being afraid. Because most associates, when they're thinking about it, they don't want to tell anybody because they don't want to get fired. You let that get out of the bag, and man, they'll can you, okay? They'll look at you like, oop, got a traitor in the midst. Somebody's looking to leave. Uh-oh. Competition. And they might take a client with them or many clients. So I had to stop being afraid of going out on my own. That was one of the first things that I had to do. And it was critical because you got to get over that fear. You got to be like, look, man, I've got to do this. I can't be afraid to do this. I can't live in this prison of like I'm on salary and afraid to take a risk and to take a chance. And then, I continued to think. And then the second thing was I'm like, man, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, you get to a point where you're like, I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of being lethargic, tired, frustrated, stressed out. And that was the second big thing. I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I did not want to feel that way anymore. I just didn't want to feel that way. So I made a decision, I'm not going to feel that way. Okay? And then the next thing I had to realize was that I will always be a slave to a senior partner's whims until I leave the nation, go to the new nation, and open my own firm. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a young associate, you're slaving away, and you are making the money for the partners. And maybe they'll make you a junior partner, maybe not. Maybe there's a partnership track. Maybe it's going to take years. And you're like, hell, I could be dead tomorrow. So why wait? Why are you going to wait? Do you really want to be a slave? Really? I mean, it's horrible. I mean, and you are. When you're an associate, you're a slave. You got to come in when they tell you to come in. You can't leave when they tell you to leave. They're going to sign you the cases. They're going to give you the staff. And you're really not going to have much of a say in much of anything. Okay? And you are. You're going to be the whipping boy or the whipping girl. And that's true. And you'll find that to be true, you young law students, when you go. You'll think it's all thrilling when you interview. You're like, oh, yeah, they want me. They want to hire me. Oh, yeah, they do. And you're going to get there. And then the chains come on. Okay. And then the next thing I had to envision, to actually physically see, was I had to see myself running and leading my own firm. I had to see that in reality, that picture. I had to feel it. And I would look at other lawyers when I would go to court, and I would see them and just watch them and interact with them. And I'm like, man, they own their own firms. And they would come and go and hire and take cases they want, determine their own fees. And I would, drive by their offices, or if I had cases with them, go over there. And I was like, man, they're running their own show. They're like, hey, I'm leaving at 12 o'clock today on Friday. Why? Because I can. Why? Because I own the firm. Why? Because I'm in charge. I'm in command, and I can do whatever the hell I want to do. And I don't have to ask anybody to do it. Kind of like being single and not being married. But we're not going to talk about that right now. So you have to see yourself, running, commanding, and leading your own firm. You've got to actually, as if you're actually doing it. You have to feel that passion and that fire and that fury and like, yo, I'm in command here. This is my ship, and I'm going to run it the way I see fit, and I'm in command. And anybody that tries to take my command from me is going to walk the plank, and you ain't coming back. And that's what you got to do. The other thing that I was, that really I was like, man, the next thing was, God, I'm making this money for the firm, but I'm on salary. I'm capped at what I'm making at this point until who? Until the partners or the senior partner, who's ever in charge, the managing partner, decides that I am worthy of getting a raise. And sometimes when you get the raise, you're like, what? How much? What? But that's, wait a minute. That's all I'm going to get. That's all I'm worth. And what they're doing is they're determining your value. You're not determining your value. They are. And you're like, hell, I'm worth more than that. No, you're not. They don't. If they say you're not. So you have to see yourself keeping the cash that you earn. It's like, you keep what you kill. I mean, a couple hundred years ago, before we had all these supermarkets and stuff and Ubers and DoorDash and all this kind of stuff, hey, man, you didn't eat if you didn't go out and go hunt. I mean, you had to go hunt the turkey, hunt the duck, hunt the deer, whatever it was. You didn't go out and hunt. You didn't eat. And if you didn't eat, you were facing a major problem. If you didn't store food up for the winter, boy, you had a problem, because chewing on wood, that would get old real quick. You wouldn't live long either. So you have to see yourself sitting across that table and, doing this thing that we call strategic seduction, where you're basically, communicating your message and you're converting that potential client's mindset, because ultimately your target is to what? To close the deal and then to collect the cash. But the difference is when you're working for somebody else, oh yeah, you've closed, you've gotten cash, but it's not coming to you. And when you look at the mirror and you go, what's in your wallet? The answer is, $1. $1. What's in your boss's wallet? $99 out of the 100. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, maybe I can get a pack of Juicy Fruit gum. With inflation today, maybe not. But you have to really envision, you have to feel like, there's the American Express card. There's Mr. Visa, Senior MasterCard, okay? There's Mr. Green, the cash that shows up. And you have to envision that client that you've closed is now paying you your value. And who sets the value? You do. You did. You set the fees, and you said, look, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to do for you. This is why you should hire me. And this is the fee to get me. To get me. This is my value. You're not having somebody else determine it. You're doing it. And they're paying you, not your boss, but it's you. You. Yeah. And it's a great thing, let me tell you. When I went out on my own and I started closing clients and started getting paid and started setting the fees, I'm like, this does feel good. This does feel different. Now, you have to give value. You have to, do what you say you're going to do and represent the client. You can't guarantee the outcome of the results. That's unethical to say that by state bar rules. But you just can't take the money and not do anything. You must show and prove your value that you parlay to them during that consult. And I can tell you, when I opened my first firm with my former law partner, I mean, I'm telling you, that feeling of like, man, we've hired the staff we want. and these people paid us, and we set the fees, and my income went up, and I was able to cover my bills, and eventually I paid off my student loans early, and I can't tell you what a relief that was. I mean, I paid them off early, got it done, got it out of the way, and I kept building. But that freedom that's associated with closing and setting your own value, I'm telling you, it's a feeling that, God, it's indescribable. It's indescribable. And then the other thing I was thinking about, and you have to think about, is you can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You have to make a decision. The longer you hem and haw, and look, I'm guilty of this. And about everything in my life. Do I take the job, not take the job? Do I date her, do I not date her? Do I marry her, do I not marry her? Do I get divorced, or do I stay? I mean, everything in life is a crossroads of decisions. You're either going to cross the road or you're not. And, it's easy to procrastinate because, look, man, there's a comfort in like not going out of your comfort zone. It's true. Like, I feel good. I don't really want to, rattle the cage. I'm tired. I just don't want to do it. And then what happens is you get in this pattern, this karma cul-de-sac of sedation, and then you spiral downward because you're not growing. You're not rising. You're just stagnating, and you're the walking dead. And it's a horrible thing to 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And most of the time, you're going to see that in marriages and relationships. And a lot of times for lawyers, you're like, I feel comfortable, I'm getting a salary. And again, you're going to make excuses of why you're not going to do something, of why you're not going to make a bold move. And it is scary sometimes. It is. But you have to. You got to take that other foot and you got to cross the road. You can't leave one leg back and the other leg across. You got to take both. That's why you got 2 legs. Okay, you got to take them both. That's how you keep moving forward. Then the other thing you got to do, okay, you got to list what you want. Now, one thing I learned about being in the organization called Wake Up Warrior that was founded by Garrett J. White, and he's the CEO too, especially in his book called Be the Man, is the question isn't what you don't want. Everybody's like, I don't want that, I don't want this. And he's right. You have to ask the better question, the best question. What do you want? Once you determine what you want, everything else is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. How are you going to know where to go if you don't know what you want? I wanted to open my own law firm. I wanted to set my own fees. I wanted to hire my own staff. I wanted to determine when I came into work, when I left, when I took time off, when I didn't. I wanted to determine the areas of law that I would practice. I wanted freedom. That's what I wanted. And I was clear and I was focused. I had such clarity on what I wanted. And I had the clarity because I had gone through this process and this pain of working for somebody else. And it's a process to get your freedom. But if you don't list out what you want, you'll never ask the better questions, and ultimately you'll never ask the best question. And you'll sit there in the abyss of sedation and self-destruction, and you'll continue to be the walking dead, walking around with that 1,000-yard stare in your eyes, never flourishing, never thriving, and worst of all, never truly living. Okay? Never truly living. And then the next thing. I'm going to tell you something. It sucks to be poor. It does. Now, I realize there are people in this country that, seriously, compared to other countries that are living in poverty, third world countries, that those folks in the other third world countries look at us and they're like, man, I wish I had a home just drinking water. I get it. We are a blessed nation. We complain and whine a lot about things. We have a lot of things available to us that millions, if not billions, do not have on a daily basis, like clean drinking water, food, access to medical and dental care. Okay? They don't even know what a 401k plan is. They're not even thinking about that. So you've got to be sick of living in scarcity. And scarcity is not just about the lack of money. Because remember, there's 5 domains here. There's body, there's being, there's balance, there's business, and there's fulfillment. Like, you can be a multimillionaire, but your body is in scarcity. It's falling apart. You could have $50 million, but you're balanced. You're going through a divorce. Your relationship with your kids, your friends, your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. I mean, it's horrible. It's a train wreck. It's a dumpster fire. And you're living in scarcity and balance, or in being. You have no relationship with God. You think you're going to do it all on your own, and you don't need him, okay? And you're just like, I don't need you. Well, I'm going to tell you something from personal and professional experience. You're going to change that attitude, because there's going to come a time in your life when an event's going to happen, and you're going to fall to your knees. And there's not one human being in this world that's going to help you or save you. And you're going to look up, because that's all you got left. That's all you really ever had. Now, you can believe that or not believe that, but I believe that. And I know that from personal and professional experience. So you could be living in scarcity and being. You got to get out of that scarcity mindset too. And then, of course, there's business. Okay, your numbers are not going to lie unless you fudge them. I mean, you've either got money to meet payroll and to pay your bills and to build something, or you don't. I mean, you can look at the numbers. The numbers are there. They're not going to just change magically. You have to take some action to change them. I had to do that. The whole problem with the legal matrix is they put you in this matrix like, you can only charge this much. The competing standards of the hourly rate, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm going to tell you something. When you can't pay your bills, when you're going to bed at night sweating, like, how am I going to pay this? Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my car? Am I going to lose my health insurance? This living in scarcity money-wise, it'll actually scare the living hell out of you. Like, scare the living hell, and you'll be like, Lord, please just give me the guidance. Give me the wisdom. Give me the wisdom. Give me the fire and the fury to move forward, to not live in scarcity in business. Let me build this business. Let me do great things with this. Don't let me be greedy. Just let me build a kingdom that I can use for my sole purpose, for your sole purpose. I mean, scarcity in business, it sucks. It hurts. It's bad. When you can't pay your bills, man, you start to get nauseous. You start to get fidgety. You get irritated. Everybody bothers you. You even bother yourself. You look in your mirror and all your personalities yell at themselves. Even the one that does big English. And you're like, what'd you say? And it's true. So scarcity sucks. And if you're in scarcity and fulfillment and you're never fulfilled, and you're like, I'm walking on empty. I'm on empty. And you have no fulfillment in any of the domains, none, zero, it's game over. Because remember, these domains, your fulfillment is what? It's fueled by passion and all of the other domains. If you don't have passion and body being balanced in business, you're never going to have fulfillment. And they're all competing with one another. They're all competing for your time. So if you're living in scarcity and body and being and balance and business fulfillment, you got to fix it. I have to fix it. I'm not just talking to you like I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I've lived in scarcity in all of those domains. And it is not a fun place to be when you're living in scarcity in any of those areas. Then came the big thing, number 9, okay? You have to be afraid more of staying in the status quo than changing. You understand? You have to be absolutely terrified that if you stay where you are right now today, that your life's just over. If you don't make the bold decision to change, to shift, and transform. And you're going to get to that in one of a couple ways. Again, either there's going to be a major event that happens in your life, and the pain is so intense, you can't stand to stay in the law firm. You can't stand to stay in the business you're in, that you're like, that's it. I just can't take this pain anymore. It has to change. It has to change. It's like in Scripture, the thorn in your side. It won't go away until you do what? Until you transform. You have to transform. I'm having to transform. I cannot be the same man I was 5 years ago. When I joined Wake Up Warrior in 2018, my life was a mess in all the domains. It's taken me a couple years just to scrape the tip of the iceberg, on getting over all these fears of change. It's a constant war and it's a constant battle, but it's something you have to do. You have to have more fear of staying where you are than being afraid to change. And it's a hard thing because you get comfortable. You're like, I don't want to create havoc. I don't want to create change. I just want to go to bed and I want everybody to leave me alone. And then, you know what? The legal matrix has you. The minute you surrender to the fear of not wanting to transform, to shift, to move, the matrix has you. See, that's the whole thing about the legal matrix. It's got its tentacles and everything, but its biggest weapon is fear. If the legal matrix can instill fear in you to not change, to not seek freedom, then the legal matrix has you. And that's why these key 9 things that I thought about so long ago, and I'm thinking about them again today because I am transforming my life. I am shifting. There's no age limit. There's no statute of limitations here on you changing and transforming your life. The only statute of limitations is the one you put on yourself. I learned that the hard way. That's why I'm trying to lead you to open the door to the past and the possibilities of stopping the fear and procrastination. It is. It's a war. It's a hard thing to do. It is. So remember, you've got to stop being afraid of going out on your own. You've got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. You've got to realize that you'll always be a slave to the senior partner's whims until you open your own firm. You got to see yourself running and leading your own law firm. You got to see yourself keeping the cash that you close with the client. You've got to stop being 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You've got to stop it. You got to list out what you want, not what you don't want, but what you want. And you got to be sick of living in scarcity in the domains of body, being, balance, business, and fulfillment. But most of all, you got to have more fear of staying in this crappy situation you're in than the fear of changing. You've got to feel that pain to where you're like, I cannot stand this pain anymore. And then you got to change. You got to shift and you got to transform. Okay. So listen up. You've got some decisions to make. I want you to think about those 9 things that we've discussed in this podcast. They're critical. They're important. If I'm doing it, you can do it. I'm not going to tell you or lead you to do something that I'm not doing myself. And it is painful for me. It's a process for me. I'm a human being too. It's not simple. Rising as a king or queen in your kingdom is never simple. You are going to fight forces. Okay? All right. So listen, it's been another great time here with each and every one of you. You know what you got to do. You got to think about those 9 things. Yes, you do. You got to think about them. You got to write them down. You got to really look deep inside yourself. I'm doing it. You can do it. So this has been another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix with your host, Bryce D. Nyer, here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, in the Fort Bragg area, now known as Fort Liberty, but I'm still not going to call it still Fort Bragg to me. All right, folks. Love and light, love and light. This is Bryce D. Nyer, and we are out.